Hello, I'm Jim Cassetta from the Pearl River Public Library. I'm the local history librarian. And in keeping with social distancing, I am going to tell you another story about the history of Pearl River. Today we're going to talk about the Dexter Folder Company and Talbot Chambers Dexter, who was an inventor and an industrialist. Dexter was born in Illinois and moved to Iowa around 1888, and he worked for the Des Moines Register, which was a newspaper. He was the supervisor of the folding room, where 50 women and children, to get out an edition, would spend 2 days collating and folding with bone hand folders the newspaper, the Des Moines Register, the edition. One day there was a problem. Some people didn't show up for work, and the edition wasn't going to get out on time. Historically, it's a little foggy exactly why, but Dexter had an idea. He took a motor and 2 long steel torpedoes and turned them into rollers, and he put the paper into this machine that he made, and it did the work. Even though it was rudimentary, it did the work of 50 women and children in 1 hour. Dexter was smart. A couple of other men he told about it were also wealthy enough to start a corporation, and Dexter and 2 other of his friends started a business. They started in Des Moines, and the building they were working in became too small. It was very popular. Dexter started to invent his own machines, and they moved eventually to about 1889, 1890. He moved to Phoenix, New York. That's up in Oswego County. What happened next was, as the business kept on growing, the newspaper and the book and magazine business was located in Brooklyn, Manhattan, Jersey City, and Newark, New Jersey. So, to be closer to this center of publishing and printing, they moved the factory, and Thomas Dexter, his brother, Talbot's brother, he started to scout around for a suitable factory. Now in 1880, Julius Bronsdorf had died, and what had happened was the factory sat empty or partially rented for 14 years. This was a blow to the community. So when Thomas Dexter came and said he wanted to rent a factory, and move it down from Phoenix, New York, the townsfolk were absolutely thrilled. So with 200 men, he came down to Pearl River, and during this time, he never took the position of president of the company, white collar. He was always the superintendent, and he walked around in overalls with wrenches and screwdrivers in his pocket, and he put together the ideas that he had. He had a draftsman draw them out, and they were worked by machinists, the parts, and put together into complete machines, like bundling machines and machines that were high pressure feeders, high speed feeders. And over the years, he developed these machines that were very reliable, very efficient, and the company was a success. Such a success that in 1904, the Missionary Tract Society of London had all of their religious tracts that they handed out throughout the British Empire were printed on Dexter machines. As things went, he needed more skilled workers, Talbot Dexter, and what he did was had men at the New York ports where he would have handbills that would advertise a job, good paying job, skilled labor needed, and bring your family. And that's what happened. A lot of Germans and Scandinavian immigrants came to Pearl River starting about 1896, 1898, and kept on coming right until up to the Second World War. During the war, the Second World War, Dexter made precision parts for aircraft, anti-aircraft guns, and other small tanks and small precision parts. And that's what they were known for. And in 1943, there was a celebration in town that the Army came and presented Bargman, who, Dexter had died in 1930. So in 1933, Henry Bargman, who was the supervising machinist, he accepted the award on a bandstand right in the middle of the intersection of Central Avenue and Main Street. Interesting to note, a union was formed, which Talbot had no problem with. He also had loans made available and mortgages to houses that are still on the lower end of southern end of Ridge Street for his employees to buy. So he was equally as benevolent as Bronsdorf as far as being an employer. Now, during the First World War, he also allowed his employees to form a food cooperative. The price of food, beans, potatoes, onions, went through the roof because of the fact that it was all needed for the troops overseas, and they would have it come into the Dexter plant loaded off of a boxcar, and families for a small fee could join this cooperative, and the rest of it was financed by Dexter himself, so they could get through the war years, 1917 through 1919, with being able to feed their families, and work was always forthcoming. This age that he ran his business in was the golden age of magazines and newspapers. It was a time that really fit into his industry very well. As I said, he died in 1930 of a suicide at his home in Winter Haven, Florida. He was very sick. His brother had died a couple of years earlier in an automobile accident in New York City. He was run over by a car. And that was the end of the Dexter dynasty. But the company kept on under O.D. Reich, and it kept on moving even through the Great Depression and the Second World War. What really started to kill it was in the 60s. Other companies were competing with him, and then the printing business and the folding machine business went to Taiwan, and the competition just couldn't keep up. So about 1965-66, the Dexter Folder Company folded, literally, as it was sold to the Rockwell International Corporation. The town was really sad to see the business go. It employed over 500 people, most of them locally, with sales offices in New York and Chicago and Los Angeles. So we were a company town here. Children knew it was time to have lunch when the factory whistle blew, and time to go home when the factory whistle blew. And they lived their lives around the clock of the factory. Today it's a business mall of sorts with 5-star millwork in there, Defiant Brewery, Bertucci, and a number of other businesses. So the old Bronsdorf factory, which became the Dexter factory, just keeps on going and being built around 1870 with the concrete parts put in 1925. Really defined this town at one time. Well, thank you. I hope you're all healthy and safe. Keep social distancing, and I'll be back again.